My guest today is Tom Isaacs from PRD in Bendigo. Tom has built his business in 12 years from a standing start, no presence in Bendigo really at all, to number one or two in the whole region for real estate agents. And before you say, real estate, this episode is just jam-packed with insight into not only the real estate industry and business models and the pitfalls and the challenges of the industry, but in terms of growing a scalable business, Tom's gone about it in a completely different way than the industry standard, and he's really shaking the industry up. They have number one and two sales agents in Bendigo by a country mile, and their team is currently 36 on-site staff members, plus a handful of off-site ones as well. Tom is a real inspiration when it comes to culture and team and vision, and through the nature of real estate being pretty stressful, incredibly stressful at times, he's really cracked it in how to be a great leader and how to set people up to be really effective at what they do, but really feel valued in the work that they do. So, man, this is a really great episode. I hope you really enjoy it. Take it away. Tom, mate, so cool to have you in the studio with me. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, it's been a journey, and I think you were at the very start of it almost.
Yeah,
when we look back.
Pretty close, actually. We were both at the very start of each other's journey, which is pretty sweet. For context, what we're talking about, when I started Hebron Films, we were I reckon we would have only been a year or so in. Late 15, and I came to you, and I'd had the list of all the businesses around that I thought could have some work and could do some cool things with. Real estate was an obvious one, so I hit you up, and I remember walking out of your office, me and Levi, we actually did a high five in the street, because you were someone who actually understood the value of video in a time when, back then, dude, YouTube wasn't like cracking like it is at the moment. It wasn't the dominant force. There wasn't, I don't think, in the early days, I don't think even Facebook could upload native video. Like, it was, YouTube links in and stuff. But you took the lead and you gave us a chance, and you're like, righto, let's do this.
I think you prescribed it well. I think
nice.
we sat there and looked at it and thought, what opportunities are there to try and differentiate ourselves? And I think at the time we had Sasha, obviously, which is still with us today, bouncing off the walls, and you identified an opportunity to say, hey, how do we brand these people differently? But we're almost at the same time frame in business, I think, when you go back that long. It'd be 11 years ago.
11 years.
It'd have to be, wouldn't it? Yeah. So 11 years later. You've still got hair.
I love it. Yeah, only just, though. I think it's starting at the back.
It'll go. Yeah.
Mate, I'm really excited to have you here, because PRD, I've had the privilege of having a little bit of a look in, not only from the way back when, but more recently, we're part of a business collaboration collective kind of business networking group. Yep. And I've just been listening to how you've structured things and seeing a little bit more of the nuts and bolts, and just been so impressed by how unique it is, or how all of your different focus areas are actually, they're not, from what I can tell, a traditional real estate agent, and the way you think about business is a little bit different. So thank you again for being here. I want you to start off with, what is PRD? What does it look like, and how does it fit in the industry? Where do you service, scale, those type of things? Describe PRD.
So PRD was founded on the northern coast, if you will, way back in the day. So only, I think, approximately 15 years ago, it was purchased by Colliers International. So its heritage is one of the biggest companies in the world in terms of real estate. So, but association-wise, we really don't have a huge association to them. And then you sort of fast forward, and in Victoria, Jens Gaunt Real Estate was operating out of Ballarat and had, I think at the time, about 12 different offices. And there was an approach from PRD to have a Victorian representation. So they purchased Jens Gaunt, I think it was in about 14 years ago. And then essentially along came us about 2 years later and took what was the PRD Jens Gaunt office at the time. And fast forward, and now it's morphed into what it is today, which is just PRD Real Estate, which has cut its teeth on property research and development. So we're fortunate enough to have the only research team in-house in any franchise in Australia.
Wow.
Which comes with Asti. I'm not going to try and pronounce her surname, but she's actually a chief economist. So I believe there's only 4 chief economists in Australia.
Wow.
And we're fortunate enough to have one in-house as well.
That's pretty wild.
It is. It's fantastic.
So property research and development, that's what PRD stands for.
Yeah.
What about your little corner of PRD? Why did you choose PRD above a different franchise, and how have you set it up to operate, and what is the scale of personnel?
Yeah, I think the start of it was dumb luck. To be honest, it was an availability of a little business in town, and we looked at it and thought, okay, we've got an opportunity here. And we've worked closely with them over the last 13 years now. When we started the business, Adele, she was on the desk, and I've told this story a number of times. She was 17 years old, and I walked in the front door, and I think there were 3 people working there. I had no idea what I'm doing, and walked in and trying to pretend to a young lady on the desk that, hey, this is going to be okay. She was 17 at the time, and I didn't know. So I think about 3 months later, she walked in and said, I just got my driver's license. And I looked at her and I said, how old are you? And look, Adele's been an integral part of our growth. So you fast forward to where we are today. At that point, we were property management and sales, and typical small business that was between 1 and 5 people.
Yep.
And we fast forward now, and Adele, I'm fortunate, she's our general manager. So she runs the place. And we have departments in-house. We have our full media suite, which look after all our property shoots, community engagement and so on. Our sales department, a tremendous admin team who are a huge support, and our property management team, which is the heart and soul of a real estate business. So I think now we're somewhere around 34 staff in-house, and then people working remotely about 7. So
Wow.
It's been a journey. It's been an absolute journey.
Well, we're going to hear more about that journey. That's a pretty decent size real estate, footprint, personnel footprint. Tell me, was that always the plan? And did the plan and how you were structuring the business ever change from when you first started to where you are now?
Every single day. Every single day, through opportunity and doubt, I guess. And you see an opportunity and then you immediately doubt the opportunity, which I think is by nature. But when I think back now, I was offered the opportunity to purchase with a fair bit of support behind me with PRD and some external people as well that gave some great advice. And at that point, it was just try and pay the bills, which it always is. But scalability creates different mindsets in terms of what opportunity you can actually, one, provide yourself, but internally with people in your team to provide them different pathways. So thinking back, one of the most frustrating things was you'd have great people in your team, but they had a different mindset on their career path and you couldn't provide it because you didn't have the scalability. And I think that's tormenting to small business owners because you can see so much potential in these people. And you want them long term, like they're great people, and you look down that pathway and you financially just can't provide it. Now having our different departments, you can have real conversations with a 22-year-old or a 55-year-old about how their journey looks for the next 10, 15, 20 years and try and build the business around them, not just say to them, we need a role filled, which is really, really pleasing. It's probably one of the most pleasing things in business that I could say we've arrived at. All
right, let's break this down a little bit. So how does a regular or a pretty standard real estate agent operate in terms of employees, business structure, and how you're talking about departments, how is PRD a little bit different?
I think your traditional model on a real estate business that hasn't got that scalability on size would be a director or a salesperson or multiple directors that are selling agents. So they're working with a little bit of a team in their team. They're running a sales department, and then they're trying to grow a property management team. And then externally to that, they probably use Hebron Films or another business to create their media. And that's probably the traditional model.
Yep.
Over time, with scalability, we've been able to probably shift away and internalise much of our function, which has been really pleasing from a media point of view, what we can produce on the HOC for the community and for ourselves, but then actually have pathways. And a really good example with Daniel Smith, who works with us, and a terrific young kid. He's worked a part of Matt Ingram's team in sales for a long time, and we've got a career path set in that team for Daniel to step out as an independent agent on his own. And he came to us 6 months ago, and we had a career pathway conversation, and he said, I don't think I want to be a real estate agent. And if I went back 10 years ago, I'd have fallen off my chair and thought, well, we've just lost a person that I can't offer a position to. And we workshopped it and sat down and went through what his aspirations are and where he wants to be. And he was pretty honest. He said, look, I want to be in business management and learn running a business.
Wow.
And we were able to sort of pivot sideways with him and say, hey, how about this opportunity? So now he's working really closely with Adele and I. He's got a key focus on technology, AI, which is just
thank goodness someone on the team is all
massive.
over it.
It just takes it away from me, which I can't get my head around all of it. And he's brilliant at it. So
great.
It's probably a really pleasing thing to be able to sit down and say, hey, we've got this 21-year-old or 22-year-old guy who's got a massive future in business, but he's with us. And we don't have to let that position go because we can't incorporate it in the organisation with a future growth mindset as well.
I love that. That's so cool. The other thing I'm thinking about is the units within the sales teams, and for someone who like myself, who didn't really understand real estate business models and employees, how you set them up to have ownership. There's some really unique and wonderful elements of how you operate that set your sales teams up to feel like they're running their own show. And could you run me through that a little bit?
It's the traditional mindset around real estate has been flawed for a long time. And certainly we're not the thought leader in this. This is done in a lot of businesses. But the old analogy, I might give real estate a go. I've never seen someone go to university for 4 years and go, look, I might give accounting a go. And that's our fault as an industry, because the history of it probably hasn't provided the greatest outlook from the community. So we've beaten that track of bringing people on, been guilty of probably not having the ability to provide the amount of support and development and growth that you need to actually succeed long term in the industry. And we looked at it a few years ago and thought we've got really two major sources of growth and opportunity. And the first one being the community, so going out to the community to recruit and try and work with local people. The second one is to onboard and create somewhat of an academy for people to have a career path, whether they're 50 and transitioning into a new industry or they're a young person coming into the industry. It gave us a chance to put them with teams internally with a career path over 1 to 3 years to say, we'll take the pressure off. You'll learn from the best in the industry with a transition that you'll have a flourishing career for the next 10 years, 15, 20 years, whatever you want. And It's really proven. We've got a couple that have stepped out, and Ruben, whom you've worked with, he's going to be a terrific example. He worked closely with Matt Ingram for 4 years, and it's been a tremendous relationship, and Ruben's worked his backside off, and now the fruits, he's just stepped out in the last 10 days.
Wow.
And he's super excited. He's got the foundation. He knows his day-to-day. He knows his KPIs, and he just now blends in. So it creates a really rewarding culture Certainly for Matt, when I talk to these guys about it, they look at it and they're frustrated and they're nervous because they lose a great team member.
Yeah.
But the pride that it actually brings into them about, hey, this is what we're doing as a team, and I'm able to actually make a difference to someone's professional career and personal, it really changes the culture in the business.
Yeah. Staying on that culture point, how let's start at perception of real estate agents.
Yep.
So classic perception of a real estate agent, from my understanding, fancy suit, swanning around, making calls, doing deals, trying to get the best price. That's about it. That's all they do, and that's, and I think, to your point of, I'll just give real estate a go, that perception of what does a real estate agent do anyway? It's just like, make a few calls. You want to buy this house? Well, whatever.
Selling sunset.
Selling sunset, that's right. And so how is that actually, what does that look like in reality at PRD? Like, what does the work actually look like of being a real estate agent? But also, how do you protect against someone who, might come in there and get a little bit of a overinflated kind of perspective of themselves because they get a lot of time and they get a fair amount of resource for their time. How do you kind of keep that culture of what I hear in what you're describing as a culture of, we're not just in it for ourselves. We're here for something different. We're here for something greater, and we're actually working as a team.
Absolutely. Look, it's something probably in the last 3 to 4 years we've had a focus on. I think everyone came out the back of, dare I say the word, COVID, and everyone was tired. And local business, and you talk to people, and they're still exhausted out the back end with the pressures of interest rates and the economy and where things are at. And we've been very fortunate in real estate that the market obviously was strong and sustained, but it created opportunity for growth and to accelerate. But in answer to your question, cultures are... It's a catchphrase that's thrown around everywhere, and trying to identify exactly what it is and what you want out of it is the big thing. I think it starts with leadership in terms of not the managing director. It's empowering people around you to understand what it is and they instill it. Because as soon as you start to try and say, this is our culture, you're not leading anything. You're indoctrinating what you believe it should be.
Yeah.
And I'm just one of 36 with an opinion. And 9 times out of 10, it's wrong. If I get one right, I'm happy. But it's very much about having leadership teams, consistent engagement with the team. And I think as well, external influences that come in and sort of check you a bit. I've always maintained, especially with the sales team, where you can have inflated egos, that the best people you can have around you are the ones that will tell you you're wrong. And if they're around you, you will be consistently checked, and your moral standing will change. And trying to do more work with the community, so the guys get an understanding of what real challenges are. And don't get me wrong, they're commercial challenges that they have in business, and stresses, and all these things are real. But sometimes when you pull the sheets back, like we spoke about, on the community and say, okay, what's really happening out there, the eyes can open up pretty quick, which has been just the last 12 months. We've certainly seen some change in the way the guys operate. Yeah,
I love that. From how did you approach that, what you're speaking about, getting those people around you that can tell you you're wrong? Was that an intentional part on yours, and did you lead by example there in terms of finding those people for yourself?
Yeah, I think you've got to be comfortable with being told you're wrong. And don't get me wrong, you'll be told you're wrong and you'll go away and say, I'm not. But sometimes it takes a bit of a dark room, or just in that last 30 seconds before you fall asleep, where you go, they were right. The more of that exposure and trying to explore people that are better than you at what you do. And that doesn't mean they're better at everything, but just chunks that you can deliver back to your team and on board. And that doesn't have to be systems and processes. That's just sometimes patience and sitting back and listening. Or we talk about it in the office, just having a look around the office, and if someone in the team you think is down, pull them aside. And we've implemented culture captains, which have been fantastic. So
Tell me about that.
Yeah, every month we have a lunch. And there's a box that people can fill in and name a person in the office that's done something that's outstanding or personally assisted or affected or just noted something. So that's read out over lunch. And then we nominate culture captains. So the culture captains are there to make change. So if there's significant things or minor things that we've noticed in the office that's just slipping outside of our code, then their role is to say, hey, Caleb, that's not us. Those comments aren't us. And that's, I think, made a big difference. As much as it's thrown around as a bit of a joke every now and again, there are certain things that we identified that I can see that have shifted away and brought the team back together. And silos in real estate, like a lot of businesses, can appear quickly. And I've always been no to offices. Everyone sits together. The property management team sits with the sales sits with the media, which drives the media insane, as you'd appreciate. But bringing people together is a learning environment and stops silos appearing, especially when you can have big gorillas in the mist.
That's great. Tell me about culture captains, this thing you've implemented. I actually had the privilege of sitting in on one of your lunches and meetings and just observing. Right. I was like, what am I even doing here? This is great. And what I saw was people actually owning it, and they were the things that were read out were real. You know, they were heartfelt. They were incisive. Was that always the case? And how did you implement it in a way that people didn't just fob it off and go, oh, Tom's trying to do culture thing.
Look, and that is a big thing. So the engagement around implementing, I think, these things, if it comes from myself or management, it's seen to be a new thing that's brought into play. And we actually went down the track of implementing an employee assistance program, which every Wednesday and Friday, we split the team up and they go in and sit with a third party via Teams.
Oh, nice.
And they'll go through a survey, and that'll be aligning everything from how they feel valued in the business. And it's a 1 to 10 scale. There's only about 7 questions. It's anonymous, but it gives us a temperature on what's happening in the business and a feel for whether or not we need some change somewhere. And then about every 8 to 10 weeks, we have an in-room with this organisation, and we run through everything from developing your own resilience, because that's massive these days, because I think it's an underused term, right through to how to engage with your team, your career path. So it's been invaluable, and I genuinely believe it's brought the team back together. As you get bigger, those risks come that you get fractures, and especially when you've got what we see as high-performing revenue salespeople and this bollard of people that stand under them to help them perform. So to bring back the appreciation both ways is it's retention and it's satisfaction and rewarding for the other team members as well.
Yeah, right. So on this culture captains thing, was it one of those things where you were like, this is what we're doing, or did you kind of spread it throughout the leadership team and get ownership that way? Like what was the inception?
So on a fortnightly basis, we have a leadership meeting, and that brings together people from different departments in the business. And again, they'll raise things that people may not be necessarily comfortable raising. So they can go to Caleb and say, look, I'm really dissatisfied with the coffee machine. Or it can be more sensitive items, because we're all different in terms of our beliefs and our history, and sometimes we get out of line, and we need to realign that to make people comfortable. So in that leadership conversation, we had a chat about whether or not this was something that could cement change, but empower other people to make change, because we can't make change in management. We make change, it's a rule. When people take ownership that may not be owners in the business on what they believe the business should look like, then it spreads. So I think it's critical to have a flat organisation these days where The big business decisions are made and shared with the team, and they're a part of that change. But the middle and micro things, they're run by the team. It's nothing to do with what we do on a daily basis. We're just moving checkers and trying to make life easy for the team members, and build best practices so they love coming to work. And if they do that, everything gets really easy. Because I can tell you, when things get out of line, it's generally my fault because I haven't spotted it or made change quick enough. And you've just got to consistently stay ahead of that because, like I said, you got 36 people. They can't be all wrong. I know who's normally wrong.
That's classic. It sounds like you've really learnt the art of business leadership in some senses, in that understanding your role in that, and how I love the description of a flat organisation that you give, because at the end of the day, the buck stops with you kind of thing. It's your show, but if you want people to come on a journey to achieve what you're striving for and to build what you're striving for, you can't just dictate what that has to look like. It's pretty cool. Now let's go practical on this culture thing, because it's really fascinating. If someone was listening to this and was like, oh man, I'd love to empower my team similarly to lift up those and acknowledge those that are doing really good things, and also just help implement this idea of culture captains, people that own the culture, that doesn't have to be you running around going, oi, oi, oi. Yeah. But the team is owning it. Walk me through like the practical nature of it. Do you have like a little, you said you have a box that people slip cards into, like how do you make that easy to do? And think back to the start, did people actually do it? What was the uptake like? Did they actually implement it quickly, or how long did it take to really cement and for people to go, oh, this is a genuine cool thing?
Yeah, I think early on it was adopted quickly.
Great.
Yeah, which surprised me, to be honest. Like I'd go to the box and open it up and have a peek every week, and I'm like, okay, there's a few more in there. Because I was wondering whether or not we get to the end of the month and I'd have to write left-handed and then right-handed to try and put a few in. But to the guys' credits and the people that drove it, it was taken really quickly.
Right.
But I do think it's the foundation that gets to that point. As a business, if you simply, or a culture and a team, if you simply sit down and say, hey, Caleb, you're going to be the culture captain, I want you to drive this. And on a monthly basis, we're going to have a readout and we're going to go through it. The team look at it and go, okay, I don't understand what we're trying to achieve. I think it starts with understanding the core values of the business, but that starts with the team telling you what it needs to be. And you can guide that because obviously I've got an interpretation of what I see to be. But ultimately it can't be what I believe. It's got to be what we believe. So if we go right back to when we set our core values and started working through that Simon Sinek style why, which is obviously incredibly powerful, and then having meetings and one-on-ones with team members around what their goals are outside of business. And if the first question is, what do you want to achieve away from the business? You almost watch a shoulder drop an inch. Because the typical conversation is, okay, what are your KPIs? What's your revenue going to be? What are you going to do for us?
Yeah.
And it's, when you think about it, it's such a dictatorship style model.
Yeah.
No one wants to go and play in that space. So the conversation now is, what do you want to achieve away from work? And that might be financial, it might be personal, it could be more, it could be anything. I want to have a baby. It could be anything. Yep. And then we reverse engineer with them and say, okay, well, this is your goal. It might be more holidays. It might be, like I said, I want to buy a house or a car. It could be anything. And how do we then put things in place that are measurable for you to achieve your personal goals? Then you find the buy-in, which is fair enough too, is tenfold. When you're having then your review or your conversation around, hey, how are we going? How are you going?
Yep.
The conversation's not, have you hit your KPIs? It's, are we on track to buy a house?
Yeah, wow.
So the buy-in accelerates And the satisfaction.
huge.
Yeah, well, when I talk to Adele and we have management meetings and you sit down and you go, how's this person going? And they go, they're on track. And the first thing you think isn't they're going to hit the target.
Yeah.
The first thing you think is they might buy the house. So it actually changes the narrative in your own mind as well.
Yeah. I love that. That's so cool. There's a couple of things when we're talking about the bigger mission that PRD exists for and what you're working towards as a team. You've recently implemented the community first fund. Am I getting that right?
You are. Yeah. The PRD Community First Fund.
Yeah, I love it. Tell me about that and why you started it.
It evolved through having the media team and looking at small business just on a local level and saying, okay, well, we're lucky enough to have a media team and a graphic designer in-house. Media people, as you understand more than anyone, are passionate about what they do. So filming a house, let's be honest, or a silly real estate agent in front of the camera with a big ego, that gets pretty boring after time. There's only so many things you can do that are going to actually give you creative satisfaction.
Yep.
So we thought, let's play in the space of going to local business, creating content for them at no cost, helping them deploy it, and just giving them a base understanding of how we might be able to help these local businesses. So the Love Your Locals sort of commenced,
cool,
which has been fantastic. And our local media team, they get involved with some sporting communities, South Bendigo Footy Club and Huntley Hawks and different organisations, and they get some passion projects, if you will, which is fantastic. And then, cool. About 12 months, probably 24 months ago, we started to talk about what we could do as a part of a fund for a few different reasons. One, we've been incredibly fortunate in Bendigo for the last 12 years, and the support we've had from the local community, the people at home, so family members of our actual team members, because they allow them to come to work every day and work their backside off instead of saying get home. Like getting that balance. But they've been incredible, and then actually getting, like I said earlier, the guys to actually buy into the community and say, you know what, there's a lot more out there. So we formed the PRD Community First Fund with a view that the team would make a contribution out of their own revenue, and the business itself would actually make a contribution as well. So. It's been really rewarding. So every quarter we're picking a fund or a local community that is typically not government funded at all, and saying to them, let's get behind you with some media and make a financial contribution. So we've worked with Sunshine locally to date, which was hugely rewarding for the team, especially at Christmas time.
Yeah.
Like you've got these two ladies supported by a lot of people in the community that absolutely work their backside off quietly. It's not the most glorious job to do, and the things that they have to encounter and the stresses, but they still grind through it. So for us to just turn up, pack some Christmas hampers, make a financial contribution, but actually get our team members to be packing and actually looking at, hey, at Christmas time, not everyone might have milk. I'm actually having to supply food for people at Christmas. So just to understand what the community actually is going through out there, and Mad Cow and a few of these really critical organisations. So the feedback from the team's been really, really powerful. The media team, I think, have loved it, because they get to actually produce something that they can say, you know what, that's making a difference. It's not just an agent bouncing off the wall saying, come buy my house.
There's a couple of really interesting elements to this, and shout out to Sunshine. What an amazing organisation. We did a little bit of work with Glenda and the team a long time ago, but they do kind of receive and distribute reclaimed, secondhand, sometimes new baby products and things for families that wouldn't ordinarily have access to a whole wide range of things that babies need.
Well, it's things you don't consider. Like, I mean, talking to Sharon when we were out there last time, everything from bassinets to delivering a capsule to the hospital after a baby's born, because the mother's got no way of actually getting the baby home safely. So it's the things that we take for granted. And I think, and I'm sure we'll talk about the Southern Cross Kids Camp later on, but when you expose, or as we've said, pull the sheets back, and your life has been pretty normal and easy, and then you actually see that, I think even if it's a moment of reset, even in the last 30 seconds, I think it makes a difference in the back of your mind that when that event happens again, you think differently about it.
Have you got I know you have, but I'm just prompting you, got the team involved in not just financial contributions, but active in supporting in some way? And what has the impact of that been?
Yeah, it was when we first started to go on the journey, we spoke about Southern Cross Kids Camp as a part of a fund we wanted to get involved in. And there certainly wasn't pushback, but it was what are we doing and why? And I don't really understand what this organisation is. And Darren in the office, he had a lot to do with foster care in his, not that long ago actually, fostering a lot of children. And he was passionate about it. And then I spoke to yourself and I'm like, how do we get buy-in? And not just buy-in, understanding of what we're trying to make a contribution to and why.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to cut a check. Yeah. Any business that wants to make a contribution can sign a check and push it off to the wayside. But that doesn't, one, make fundamental change in the business around your culture and an understanding and a community engagement. So sort of give back your own time. So we had the team at Southern Cross Kids Camp come in and I still remember we were sitting upstairs and we'd spoken about this 12 months prior and they were like, do we really want to be involved? And the team are just amazing. And they presented to our team. And I think there were 3 wet eyes across the team. There were people volunteering saying, I want to be involved. And after it, we sat down and I said, what are your thoughts? And they said, why haven't we done this before? And I'm like, okay. So it's again, is a perfect example of leadership, which I got wrong 12 months prior, saying, I think we should do this, rather than saying, hey, let's listen to this. And if you want to buy into it and you think it has value for our culture, for what we're trying to achieve in the future as a business and our community alignment, then let's go and do it. And the buy-in was 100%. I had people in the business that I thought would never get involved in a community charity event that would probably openly say it.
Yeah.
Say, I want to go to the week. I want to be involved. So it's, very, very rewarding.
That's huge. So also for those who aren't aware, Southern Cross Kids Camp is a camp a week every year where the team, we've got one in Bendigo, that take roughly 20 to 30 young children aged 7 to 12 away on a week, give them a week of happy memories. Now, these kids are pretty much all of them from the foster care system. Yep. They have had an incredibly rough trot. They're local kids that, many of them won't have ever received a birthday present. They won't have ever celebrated their birthday. Their childhoods have been riddled with moments, really challenging moments of abuse and neglect. And Southern Cross Kids Camp takes them away, shows them that there are adults that care. Yep. There are adults that are safe, that don't want to hurt them, but just want the best for them. And so there's a whole bunch of ways that people can get involved with that. And what I hear is, your team are keen to get on a week. There's birthday present wrapping that can be done. Where are you up to in that kind of practical elements? And the team are excited about it, but what do you see why would you encourage engagement in something like that from a business perspective? Yeah,
I think as a younger adult in our house, we fostered a lot of kids coming through. So Mum was involved a hell of a lot, and then talking to people in the office around it and talking about certain events and things that occurred. When you say certain stories, or you tell a story about a child coming through the house and the haves and the have-nots and the issues that they faced, you watch people that haven't been exposed to it, their face drops.
Yeah.
And it's scary because the easy thing to do, which we all do, and it's by nature, is just go, that's hard. I don't want to really focus on that because this world's a lot easier and someone will deal with it. And fortunately, we've got people like yourself and Southern Cross Kids Camp that drive these things. But it's incumbent on us, I think, as a local community to say these are kids. So we've all seen crime that's increased dramatically in Bendigo and regional centres. Kids on the street everywhere. We've recently had the marketplace violence. More than likely, these are children that have been through all these events. So, one, they're kids. They deserve the opportunity like anyone to be, if you will, put back into a system that cares. And then for our team members to probably be a part of that, I think it empowers them a little bit more and tells a story of traditional real estate, which we're all guilty of, agencies and businesses and cultures changing our narrative in terms of sales and what we do. Because we've done it to ourselves, like I said earlier. The industry's eaten itself alive for 30 years and given the community a reason to go, you know what, you're going to the bottom of the trust list again. So it's these sorts of things, I guess, are the things that over time, and we've been fortunate in Bendigo, we've had some forefathers of the industry that have provided an incredible foundation it's meant it's lucky enough for us to come through and be a part of that. And I think now it's time that we take that next step, but certainly maintain what they've already done.
That's a great place to segue into why on earth did you become a real estate agent? How did you get into this game?
A local agent that my wife was actually working for in property management for a couple of years. I was working in banking and finance and enjoyed it. Wasn't very good at it, but enjoyed it, and I thought it was going to be the career path. And I went around to this gentleman, terrific guy. I went to his house for dinner one night, and I think we had a few reds. And I remember waking up in the morning, and my wife said, you agreed to go and work in real estate. And I went, I did? Yeah, I was one of the lucky ones in terms of coming into the industry that went into a business that wasn't a big business. It was a good business, but I had a lot of support from the director, who was a non-selling director at the time. So he invested a fair bit of time, and then I fell into it. It's just dumb luck, probably the whole way through, to be honest. And then 18 months later, an opportunity crossed my desk out of nowhere, and it was again dumb luck. And I went home to my wife and said, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And she just looked at me and said, "I don't know." And I said, "Well, I don't either. We're going to have to make some sort of a decision." And I called my brother-in-law, and he's in business, and said, "What do you think I should do?" And he said, "You don't have a choice." He said, "It's an opportunity." He said, "What's the worst thing that can happen?" And your head caves in and you're like, everything.
There are
so many things that are going to go wrong. We jumped into it with some real support from clients that I'd dealt with previously, and just had to make it work. Like I said to you, when we got the coffee this morning, I was talking to a lady across the road, and I said, "How is it?" And she said, "It's hard."
Yeah.
And it is hard. And you tip your hat to certainly hospitality businesses in Bendigo and, for that matter, everywhere, that say, "Hey, I'm passionate about this," because I think that the more support they get, the more they'll grow and be protected, and you'll have good, sustainable local business. Yeah.
What was your trajectory? You started, you mentioned that your old boss that gave you a go, got you in, was a non-selling director. Tell me, how did you progress? You're not on the buses that go around town. Like your face isn't synonymous with PRD. How did you go from coming in as what I'm assuming is you are doing sales at the start, and how did you build the business to now 36 staff?
Again, it sounds like a consistent theme, dumb luck, because we went through a period where I was building a team around myself, because your sole goal every day is to sell some houses to pay the bills. And you get to a point where that's going okay, but you're working 55, 65 hours a week. And as you're getting on a plane, you're hitting transfer to Adele, who was 21 at the time. And I remember saying to her, it was the first holiday we'd taken overseas, and I said to Adele, "Do you mind if I transfer my phone to you?" And she said, "No, it'll be fine." And I said, "Look, it's going to ring a bit." And she said, she said, "No, it's no problems." And I was walking onto the plane, and I'm on the phone to her. I'm saying, "I'm going to transfer it now." I'm going to transfer it now. And the anxiety, I almost wanted to vomit, because I'm going, what am I, I can't leave. And then I hit airplane mode and got on the plane, and the anxiety was terrible.
Wow.
And we almost got 2 hours in, and the anxiety went down, and hers went up.
Yeah.
And she was incredible while I was away. She didn't say, a word.
Yeah.
And she said, when I got back, she said the first probably 4 days, she said, I'd have to put her on charge every 25 minutes because she kept going and going. And this was when stuff was going everywhere.
Yeah.
She was literally, she had a broom behind me just sweeping up.
Wow.
Getting things done because you were just going that hard and fast that you were just trying to survive. And then you sort of fast forward and COVID. So I was still selling a little bit before COVID and probably 60, 70% of the time. COVID hit and you're almost forced to be a leader, not a salesperson, if that made sense. So I remember standing out the front and we had the call to say that, hey, we're going to go into a lockdown. And everyone was, what's a lockdown? And I think we had 14 or 15 people in the office at that time. And we all stood out the front and we were talking about this COVID thing and going home and working from home and what it looks like. And I remember talking to them and we had people that just started in the last 2 weeks. So it was obviously commercially an opportunistic time to say we need to shred. And we had a conversation out the front and I just said, look, we'll sail as close to the edge of the waterfall as we can before we lose anyone.
Yeah, nice.
And we went home and we started, I think, fortnightly pizzas that were ordered and delivered out to all the team members under the provision that anyone that had the pizza delivered sent us a photo with the kids or the partner eating the pizza.
Nice.
So to go out Friday nights, it was something that we could all sort of share in and have conversations about. Yeah. And then eventually, I don't know really when or how it happened, I think I was forced to allow full autonomy out to the guys and focus on the business. So returning back from COVID, I was pretty much completely out of the selling space.
Wow.
And running the business. And then fast forward, 3 years now, we've gone to that sort of bigger style, new office space. And my role is now really people and growth and, all things IT that I've got no idea about.
That's great. I love that story about Adele and your phone. Tell me, like, what? Let's put some understanding around this. Like, how often would that phone be calling? How many calls a day? Like, have you ever looked at your call logs and seen how many there was?
So now, it's fantastic. Like, it's honestly, it's very seldom. Like, it might ring 20 times a day.
Yeah, love it.
Then it was. I remember being at the Apple store is it George Street in Sydney? I think it's George.
Oh yeah.
And my phone was playing up. And I don't know what was happening, but we walked in and I was with my wife and they put it on a tech thing.
Yeah.
And she said, look, I can see that the battery's shot. You're going to need a new battery. But she said, there's something else wrong. It's showing that on average you're getting around 130 calls a day. And my wife just looked at me and shook her head, and it was
it's not wrong. That's right.
But even now, when I talk to Matt and Sasha, they're in the same space. It's probably cool because they're running teams, but if they're on the phone for more than 15 minutes, they might have 2 voicemails.
Wow.
So it can go through these stages. And I remember I said to my wife one day, I don't know, I'm getting like not reflux, but almost wanting to vomit. I feel sick.
Yeah.
And it was anxiety from the phone.
Wow.
So it does, I don't know, the muscle memory in your brain on the noise. So I know a lot of people now, even in our business, that have it on silent permanently.
Yep.
Because it's not a good thing. We've got to be really cautious because it causes anxiety and stress and it becomes a reference to not good.
Yes.
So it was something that, fortunately, in the last 3 or 4 years I've been into get away a little bit from, but now my job's with people, which is I love working with the guys.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. That sound association. It's like your alarm in the morning. Like if you hear that somewhere else, you're like,
mate.
Or like songs that were on it at the bakery at my first job when I had to get up at like 5 a.m. I hate those songs. I hate them, and they're fine. Like they're fine songs, but I hate them.
And if you can remove them from your day to day, you just wonder what the level of anxiety that goes away.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Like, and even talking to the team now around booking holidays, you got to have something to run to. And Matt, absolutely, you go back 3 years ago, lunatic. The amount of times I'd see him running down the lane to go out the front door to get in the car to an appointment, and he'd come running back in to be going, where's my phone?
Oh, man.
He'd grab it and off he'd go. And then probably in the last 2 years, it's almost like he's found a a level of peace in his processes, and he's calmer.
Wow.
And I'm sure that reflects in front of clients and culture and staff.
Yeah.
But it just takes a little bit of time, I think, for people to say stop, slow down, which is an important one.
Yeah.
And have something to run to, which we talk about all the time. To have, sometimes it might be 2 days off over a long weekend or a major goal for a holiday with the family. Because if you don't have those, you start to run into the, why the hell are we doing this?
Yeah. It's probably a good spot to pivot into challenges. What throughout the journey, what would you put up there as some of the hardest things you've encountered that you've learned something from? Like I always say on this podcast, that failure is critical. It's crucial to growth. You cannot grow without failure.
Yep.
What have been some of your big moments where you're like, wow, that was a bad decision, or wow, this is really, really hard, and you just had to rally, or you had to get through it, and how did you do it?
I think I've said to a lot of people before that and you'll probably agree with this, the most lonely place on the planet is being a sole director. It's because it's you, and it's what's between your ears.
Yeah.
And I think what people that aren't in that position or haven't been in the position forget is you spend 95 to 98% of your time worrying about other people. And it's not revenue. It's you're concerned because you see a change in their demeanour, or they've got something happening at home. So I think one of the biggest learning curves that I've had in the last probably 5 years, more so with growth and more people around us, and having to probably have a better EI on what's happening in people's lives, is remove resentment away from that and actually focus on fixing that.
Wow.
Because it's really easy to sit there and go, Caleb, how is your poodle my problem? How is your baby that might be a little bit crook with something my problem? But it is my problem. Because if it's your problem, somehow the business and myself have got to be in a position, within reason, to be able to make your life easier. Because if we can't do that and create the best possible place for you to want to be, and that's supported by your partner as well, then why are you coming to work? Even if the money's great, it still eventually puts stresses on environments. And one of the conversations I've had when I've interviewed people over time, and it's been a really odd one, we've got to the end, and I interviewed a local person only probably 12 months ago, highly successful individual in a corporate job, and really successful, terrific person. You might be listening. And we had a conversation about a transition into real estate from where they were. And we got to the end of it, and I said, look, I think you're going to be really good at this job, but I don't know that you're now, because his life stage was such that young children, and we got to a point where I said, look, if we do catch up again, I think it's important that I catch up with your wife as well. And they always look at me and going on why, or it could be with a husband, and I say, because they're the first person that's going to hate me, because you're going to work. And it is that slog, like any business. And if you think of being a sales agent, for instance, and we're focused on sales agents, but the first 3 years is incredibly difficult, emotionally, financially. Like there's not a huge amount of rewards in that period for the success that could come. And property management's the same. I mean, I walk into our office, and if you looked at it as a skeleton on the back, the property managers are the spine, and we're the lunatics coming off the side, which are the ribs. And they are just solid individuals who deal with incredibly difficult situations on a daily basis, hard conversations, which can sometimes, unfortunately, through stresses become personal attacks. But they get up and they go and push. And I think that's been probably, like you said, one of the big learning things was don't be in sales, don't be in property management, just be in business and support.
Wow.
And ask questions. What do you need?
That's so cool. I hear, and you know, when we're talking about people's homes, whether they're selling, buying, or renting, or leasing, you know, it's incredibly personal, and you can't get much closer to home than your home, right?
Absolutely.
And so what I can see you've done is you're in, and your team are in quite a stressful environment in many times throughout their days and weeks. And through that desire to help them succeed, and kind of the need for you to go, how do I make this work? How do I get scalability? You have to be emotionally intelligent, and you have to treat them like people rather than robots. You know, you can get away with that in some businesses where you're just like, no, when we're at work, we're our work selves, and when we're away, we're different people. And you might be able to manage that in a manufacturing job or something that doesn't require interpersonal connection in every interaction. But what I hear you saying is that you've been on this journey of realizing, look, I have to be these people's champions if they're going to be effective and profitable and impactful members of my business and team members. I need to get into the weeds a little bit. I need to be able to support them emotionally and treat them as they are rather than just faceless employees. Is that right?
You spend so much time together, and you actually yearn for their success, not just through your own financial gain. That's an outcome of everything you do. But when you sit down and you have a conversation with these team members and you're like, what do you want to achieve? And like I said, whether it's media or sales, and they open up because they're in an environment where they trust, but they can see that we're not talking as a business on a day-to-day basis. We want you here for 15, 20 years. If this is the journey you're on, as long as we can make change in your journey, if it's 5 years and you can leave with a positive outlook, fantastic. If it's 2, if it's 20, even better. But I think an understanding of what everyone else wants before you and then set it, you may not get exactly what you want all the time. But I think 9 times out of 10, if everyone understands that you care, when you talk to them about what you want, it's a vastly different conversation. Whereas if I say to you, Caleb, I want this, and you're working for my organisation, you'll go, well, hang on, what about me? Which you've got every right to ask that question.
Yeah. You said, and it's very true, being a sole director is incredibly lonely. It is.
It sucks.
It sucks. What have you put in place to help yourself thrive in that position or manage in that position? Like, what are some practical things you've done for yourself?
Leverage on people and ask questions. I think they're big things. Like it's when you go to a real estate conference or a business conference, you learn a bit in the room, and you learn as much as you want to learn and what you want to take away. But the people you sit down with after for dinner, and you might have a red wine with or a Coke, you will learn immense amounts. So I guess exposing yourself as much as you can to people that will challenge you is the biggest one. That is 100%. The best thing you can do is to be around people that are far better than you, because you will learn immense amounts of things. And what it'll do too is self-fulfill that question in the back of your mind, are we on track? Because you'll find little nuggets that they go, well, what about this? And you go, actually, we're doing that. That's working. But yeah, it's always been something. I know, talking to the franchise that we work with, PRD, they've said to me, you ask a lot of questions. and it's because if someone else is stuffed up, I don't need to do it again. You just tell me not to do that and I won't go and do it. And that's where I think, like, we've got some incredibly successful owners in our network through Sydney and Brisbane, and even our BDM is an ex-agency or agency owner. And they've had huge amounts of success. So don't try and reinvent the wheel. Just ask questions and go to as many events that can be fruitful in terms of learning, but meeting people that you can get to, because it gets you out of your own head. You'll learn that you're wrong, and then you'll learn how to fix things, and then empowering people in the office. Like in your business, if you empower people, it frees you up, and that's been probably the big thing. Like Adele there's nothing she has to come to me with.
Wow.
She can make any decision she wants, and within reason. To be honest, the rest of the guys do. Like they'll come to me and say, "Can we do this?" And I'll go, "Really? You know what you can and can't do. You know if it's a good decision, a bad one.
Yeah.
If we swing for the fence and we get it wrong, no one died.
Yeah.
We'll just get it right next time.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. It really speaks to the what you're speaking about, the empowerment of team. It kind of starts with and most business owners are and have to be to an extent not risk averse, like pretty courageous and pretty comfortable with risk. But it sounds like you have instilled that ownership and sense of freedom within certain boundaries within your team, so that you expect them to also take some calculated risks and to not just play it safe. Like I can see that in your media team, for example. Not everyone. I'm not sure of too many real estate agents that have an in-house media team because, you know, it's a risk. You think, oh well, you know, how am I going to leverage their time? How am I going to leverage the investment that I'm making in this media team? How have you approached, you know, that risk nature and why did you take the leap into things that others wouldn't?
I guess the first thing is understanding what you're trying to do that's not commercially based. So if everything we do today is about earning $1 today, then very few things are going to get done. Whereas if we can look into the future and say, okay, what benefits are we going to achieve outside of the transactional basis? So transactionally, yes, we're going to film property, we're going to create content, and et cetera. But then if we look at it and say, okay, from a long-term branding point of view, what does it do for our brand? Because we can create individual content. What does it do for our people in terms of engagement? So we've got Caleb that works in a real estate agency or wants to work somewhere, and he looks at it and says, you know what, PRD, they brand their people really well. That's their whole sole goal, is to brand their people and grow that individual brand. And then outside of that, again, the community stuff. So if you look at the three, I guess, first and say, okay, is there purpose in this? What's the worst case scenario? Some losses maybe if we're not filming enough property here. But what's the value in 10, 15 years? And what's the legacy you can create in the business that means when Adele owns part of the business or our sales team start to take shares out in the business, what's the foundation for that? And I've said to the guys many a time, the greatest thing that could happen is I retire at, 60. But I can drive past at 75 and then the business is still flourishing with the people that were in it. Yeah. And that's where I think that long-term branding focus needs to be. We know that someone transacting in 15 years is 18 today, for instance, or 16 today. So how do we add value to them today so they think our brand in 15 years when Daniel, for instance, in the office, who's only 23, is only 38 and he might be running the business. So it's consistently thinking, I guess, about future branding, not what can make $1 today.
I love that long-term perspective. I mentioned on one of the recent podcasts episodes about an example being John Deere, for example. They make toy tractors. It's because they have a long-term vision. And it's what I hear you reflecting is that if you're looking at today and the short term, then you'll be operating short term and you'll be thinking small, you'll be operating small. But if you're thinking long term, then that's the path to consistency, scalability.
An opportunity. Like I think probably the best example that I've seen, and we talk about a lot in the office, is the Dolomites from the Commonwealth Bank.
Yeah.
I mean, they came around schools in the early to late 80s.
Yep.
Opened bank accounts for kids and gave us, what do you call them, money boxes.
Yeah.
And we were like, this is amazing. We've got a deposit book.
Yeah.
Now,
I remember them.
Probably 80% of us are Commonwealth Bank clients.
Yeah.
So you think about their forecasting on a transaction that might happen in 25 years for a mortgage or deposit funds.
Yep.
I don't know who came up with the idea, but they should be in gold. Because so it is that future business and legacy. We all talk about legacy because the last thing you ever want to do is, I think, is run a business and sell it. the greatest thing you can do is run a business with a team of people that then inherit that opportunity and they take it on and grow it and make it better, fix the things you stuffed up, and with more of an infinite mindset, not that finite outlook.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Mate, we have rabbited on for a wonderful
shock horror,
a wonderful length of time. Thank you. I really appreciate you saying, you said, look, I don't know if I'll have too much to share, but I know and evidenced by this episode that you have so much to share. You've got a wealth of wisdom and knowledge, and I really appreciate you sharing it on the podcast.
No, thank you for having me on.
Well, that's it for this episode. If you really enjoyed listening, why don't you drop a comment in the comments below? Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel so that you get updates on when all of the next ones come out. That really helps grow this little community of people that are diving into regional business and celebrating and learning more from it. So really appreciate your support, and I can't wait to see you in the next one.